Hi and welcome to a weekly review. Now, this weekly review is going out on Tuesday and not Monday. Slight oversight on yesterday's. Normally do this during the morning on the Monday. Completely looked past it, but it was a good thing because it allowed me to gather some other thoughts and also give us a bit of an idea of where the market's starting for the week. Now, looking at the euro dollar first, and we're seeing the euro pinned down here on a weekly from a weekly point of view, and it is technically to me oversold. Now we've got the signal coming from last week, and there's the potential for some bullishness here. However, we've got to bear in mind this as we run through this week. On the fourth, which is Sunday, the Italians would be voting for on constitutional reform. If only I could have said that in the first place, it would have been better. But so they're voting on constitutional reform. Now, if the vote goes wrong, it could ultimately lead to Italy leaving the Eurozone. So their brokers are already probably tapping people up as I talk and reminding them that their margins will be increased over the weekend from Friday. So something to bear in mind as we lead into Friday, and traders may actually, although this is looking oversold now, may be selling the euro into the Friday, as it will not only affect obviously the Italian stocks, bonds, and etc. It may well rock on into the euro, and particularly if it's found in favour of um, well, the potential of Matteo Renzi losing the vote. The political instability, they say, could argue that could ultimately lead to Italy leaving the Eurozone. So with the cases of what's happened with Brexit and Trumpet, people aren't taking chances here. So it's looking more bearish than bullish at the moment. So that's a fundamental point of view. Also, as we lead in through this week, early things to look at. Tomorrow we've got German retail sales. It gives us a bit of a feel of what's going on. Wednesday we've got OPEC meetings, which might spill across to some of these markets. We've got non-farm payrolls, the ADP data, and coming out on Wednesday. And we've got Draghi speaking at 12:30 on Wednesday. Now he's due to speak about the future of Europe at the University of Desto Business School in Madrid. So I don't know if how much. I wouldn't expect too much to come from that, but you never know. Now ADP, Canadian GDP comes out as ever on Wednesday on each month. Leading into Thursday, there's some UK data coming out, which I'll talk about in a moment. But more importantly, leading into Friday, we've got non-farm payrolls at 1:30, along with the Canadian non-farms. So we've got two lots there overlaying each other. So a relatively modestly quiet week with some key data coming out in between. So it's sort of it may create some volatility tomorrow. We'll have a look. But today it's certainly one of those funny days when you're looking at what happened yesterday. It fired up yesterday, looking all bullish, and then gave it all back in the morning and leading through the afternoon, and it's led us into indecision. We've hit the weekly pivot, got no targets from that perspective. However, as we look from where we are at the moment, if we start pushing back up, I would be looking towards that daily 21. If it starts moving there, any good signs, any weakness shown in the US dollar, that would be a sort of target area. We've got halfway there, so I'm sure we can get there if it pushes to the upside. Alternatively, well, I should point out there is a daily divergence going on here, which may help that as well. So that the fact that it's oversold, etc., may push towards the upside. What holds it down is the fundamentals at the moment and the potential for selling. And I think if we start seeing it sell off to any extent, we could see it running back towards last week's lows and maybe even the monthly S3, so and beyond. I mean, we could just, if it's bad news on Sunday, Sunday evening into Monday, could see this smashed out and the euro diving to parity maybe and beyond. Okay, that's the euro. The pound. Let's come look at the weeklies first, and well, pretty much a similar picture on both of them. I'll put the wedge there. It's sitting there in an indecisive sort of role at the moment. Yes, last week sort of managed to pop back up a bit overall and made one of the bit better gains for a while. It's it's looking iffy to say the least at the moment. And when you come to the dailies, we're just really hand railing this monthly pivot. It's just sitting there using it as support, and that's where we're sitting at the moment. It's pushed up a couple of or twice now over the last month into the 50 yesterday and today, third time actually today. At some point it may break this. I've now put the trend line, or break and close above it, should I say. I've put the trend line at the top there, which is what I'm really looking for if it starts pushing up with any gusto. A break of that, well, we'll then be looking towards maybe the monthly R1 area, which sits at 127.77. Now, it's all gone a bit quiet, probably about Brexit to a certain extent. I think the public have got used to it now. The markets are getting a bit used to it as it stands at the moment, and it may just continue through the rest of November as we see, and running into December. Well, the December pivots are going to come out pretty similar to where the November pivots are, so no real chase for that, I don't think. Right, dollar yen. Now, I mentioned it last week. The dollar yen is pretty overbought, and it's still pushing in that territory. Signals coming up pretty strong overbought signal. It was all looking pretty bearish up until then. A couple of weeks ago, we ran into the 50. Last week, we just shoved on in onwards and upwards. Looking like actually someone pointed out there was a monthly target. Oh, we've gone through it. Perhaps it's a monthly 20 simple, which is looking like it's going through. Oops, sorry. That's not really what I wanted to do. Anyway, for now, it's to me there is the potential. The fact that it's got so stretched up here, the potential of a bit more of a retrace. We've already seen quite a kicker yesterday. It came off. It continued down for a while. We're sitting there first sort of support into the weekly pivots. Sorry, not weekly pivot, into the 8 moving average, so below the weekly pivot. It's bounced again off that. Another test and a break of that would see me a bit more bearish towards the daily 21, but at the moment I'm not looking to chase it. It's pushing on upwards. Maybe it's got further upside to go. Of course, we've got non-farms coming out that could well shape things up. Aussie dollar, well, let's have a look at the weeklies here, and it got overbought into the highs here. It's got oversold into the lows last week, and it's sort of sitting there, that sort of oversold sort of signal, but it's from a very pinched previous action over the last few months. Where could it go now? It just needs to get back up to that weekly 21 to work off this oversold sort of signal, really. So it's not too far off it from that perspective. Looking at where we are on the daily as well, it's just run into the daily 21, and this may just hold it even better. And it's just sort of come off that a little bit now. It has got the potential to get down to its weekly pivot, which is below. It's just taken its time. It's had a reasonable run up here. Perhaps this is all it needed to do to start rolling over. Break above the 21, it becomes a bit more bullish. Target wise, then it becomes awkward as well, because it was sitting in this choppy area. There's no real sort of target in that level. For me, perhaps the 234 moving average, 50 moving average may be sort of targets if it does break along there. If it continues to sell off, obviously the weekly pivot, and then maybe even running into the end of the week, into the new month, perhaps we'll be heading further south. We'll see. And finally, the Canadian dollar. Now, the Canadian dollar largely was correlated with oil, but it seems to be a little bit out of sync, and, well, oil's not really doing too much either. In fact, what I'm going to do is flick onto oil here. You see oil is basically in a relatively tight weekly range, which it seems to be sitting in. I had a trend line, it broke that, found support off the weekly 50, bounced back up, and it's sort of sitting in this range. Now, there are important meetings going on this week. Monday saw nothing particularly agreed on, but the Wednesdays, tomorrow is the main sort of day for the OPEC meetings, and we'll be interested in if any decisions and agreements made out of that. Something sound coming from that could see oil pushing up quite strongly, I would imagine, initially at least. Um, so there is that possibility of the shove to the upside. Looking from a daily perspective, it's not really given too much clues because literally led by these OPEC meetings. So I'm not going to try and get anything technical out of that. So for the Canadian dollar, then, if oil starts pushing up strongly, it should to some degree bring it downwards. Now, let's just go back to the weeklies. The weeklies have been just trending up in this sort of channel here. In fact, you could probably put a regression channel. Oops, if I put it in the right place, it'd be good. Let's try again. From the lows there to the most recent high, and you can see it's basically trending up pretty well in that sort of scope. A pull, any sort of price or shot up in the shoot up in the price of oil could obviously bring it back down to that mean and maybe even the bottom side of this regression channel on the weeklies. So it could have quite a correction there short term. Now, one thing to bear in mind is the fundamentals from a country point of view are not fantastic in Canada. They're looking brighter in the US, sort of, although there's a lot of indecision and uncertainty led by the new president-elect. So although that's there, the dollar's been running stronger. Even when the price of oil has been pushed up of late, it's not really had the same effect as it was once having with the Canadian dollar. So will it sell back off again? Possibly. Where's the monthly pivot going to be? Probably where the price is at the moment, not far away from it. So it's not going to have much of a target from a monthly point of view. I was looking today, if it sold below yesterday's lows, I'd have been more happy if it possibly some continuation, but we really have got to, I mean, I think we'll be guided by the crude oil price and what comes out of the meeting tomorrow. Right, that's pretty much it for me. As I say, I've done most of the news there. The only other news which will affect the pound actually is construction PMI on Friday the 2nd. It's the first of the PMI data to start coming out. Aside of that, there's not too much else that I can see there. Bank stress test results on 7 o'clock on Wednesday tomorrow morning. We've seen those out time and time again. They might give a bit of a wobble in the morning, we'll see, but it's more likely to attack the FTSE when it opens as well. Okay, that's it for me. Nothing else to mention there. In fact, have a great week. Bye for now.